Okay, you were on Alex Jones earlier this week. You were talking about the pipe bomber Patsy story because I've already put out my tweet, like, bookmark it. They got the wrong guy.
Yeah.
There was some breaking news in that case that there was it was unearthed footage of this kid being pulled over. The kid's name is Brian Cole Jr. Was pulled over for a car accident back in 2024, and there's some sort of unearthed footage.
He just ran into somebody in the state police, or the whatever it was, the either Virginia State Police or the county police dealt with him. I might have been on Fairfax County Parkway, something like that. So it's not newsworthy. It's just the fact that it was body cam footage, and then people were like, "Oh, there's this kid," and he was accused of running into a guy in the back. He rear-ended a guy, and now they're like, "Well, he's the pipe bomber." So that's the exciting, sort of stuff. He's not a nonverbal autistic person, but he's clearly got some tics, and he definitely has some weird things going on. I will call people's attention to a few things. Number one, look at the way that he's reading documents and his phone. And you'll notice that his face is very, 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 very close to the screen because he's extremely nearsighted. Now, that's kind of in contrast to the person we've seen who's the pipe bomber wearing the hoodie on the videos, who's able to read a phone, probably through sunglasses, if we think that's correct, on his or her lap, which is a much bigger problem. I mean, I generally also bring my phone pretty close to my face, not as close as this guy necessarily, and he's 15 years younger than I am. So this is kind of the stuff that's kind of interesting. And then there's 40 plus more minutes that are available in the background, including some video footage of him walking and standing. And from what I understand from the video analysis, just preliminary that's being done, his shoe size is not the right size. The shoes he's wearing are not correct.
In what sense? Because in what sense?
His are too big.
His are too big to be the
They do not match the size of the pipe bomber's shoes. So that's part one. Obviously, his proportions are different. You'll notice he does this thing when he's writing in a second. He started at the 30-second mark or maybe the 28-second mark.
His shoe size is too big because the proportions of this kid's body are I'm not trying to be funny.
They're a little different.
Okay, everyone's all good.
Police responding to a Virginia traffic accident in 2024 captured these images of Brian J. Cole Jr. more than a year before federal authorities took him into custody and accused him of planting pipe bombs near Democratic and Republican headquarters in Washington, D.C.
Lapse in judgment. I was looking for a place that I could, go on to the next lane, and then just one small lapse in focus, and I just crashed behind him.
Cole was driving the blue Nissan Sentra when he rear-ended the truck in front of him.
If you would have left some space, you would have...
Okay, here you're observing...
the vehicle. Does that make sense?
I'll pause it for a second.
So here's where you notice that he's looking to his right. Some people are saying he was just looking at the license plate.
He's not. We've done some analysis on that.
No, and also, under what circumstances would he be writing in the license plate number on an infraction? I mean, the police would write that in, no?
I would think so. Yeah. So you'll watch him. He'll do his head nod. He does it about 4 times. So we can, and even in this small little clip, and this is a cherry picked clip. I'm gonna actually roll back just a little ways. Actually, if you look here, he's got the phone right up on his face, right?
Yeah.
So here we go. Ready? I'll roll it. And people just watch. He's going to basically take he's going to try to see if he can get his ear down to his shoulder about 5 times or 4 times.
Truck in front of him.
If you would have left some space, you wouldn't have rear-ended the vehicle. Does that make sense? Okay? Yeah.
A police officer wrote him a ticket that day for following too closely behind
repetitive.
the other vehicle.
I see that you do have a good driving record. You have 4+ points, which is good. You ever gotten a crash before?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah, I've been through this process before.
The consequences of this non-criminal offense are minor compared to the federal charges Cole is now facing.
All right, and so there's not much else in there as far as that video value goes.
So they unearthed this. There's a full 45 minutes of it.
Mm-hmm.
When Julie Kelly was on, and I've subsequently asked, like, I remember she mentioned during our stream that the shoe size would be between 9 and 12, and I was like, apparently it was the FBI that mentioned that during one of their press releases.
Wait, is this Julie Kelly who doesn't believe that the FBI got the right guy and doesn't believe that this could be the right person, but celebrated this being the right person and tried to dunk on everybody that said other people could be it? Is this the same Julie Kelly?
That is the same Julie Kelly, but that does not mean that she's wrong on this particular point, because she said it when we were live, and I said the guy's 5'8" or 5'7", and has got between a size 9 and 12. It's like, I've never known anybody, and I sold shoes that would be 5'7" and had a size 11 foot, like 9, 9.5, and 10, and maybe 10.5. But 11 to 12. And I was like, so apparently the FBI did say that. And now, apparently, if indeed this is the same guy, the question is going to be, in the video of the January 6th hoodie person, does that look like a size 12 foot or 11 foot? Because apparently this kid has massive feet in proportion to the size of his body.
Mm-hmm. That will be the question.
That'll be the question. That'll be one question. The second question is, he's looking at his phone, compare that to the pipe bomber. who's there walking very nonchalantly, looking at the phone from down here, whatever. That's going to be another issue.
Yeah. The other problem is that nobody who's seen this kid thinks that he's the guy, having watched the pipe bomber footage. And that includes new interviews that have been done in the last couple of days, people in the neighborhood, people that have interacted with him. He's a very repetitive human being that basically does the same thing every day, eats the same thing every day, goes to the same places every day. And none of those things apparently include going into Washington, D.C. So out of nowhere, this guy decides to break his whatever it is, 10-year pattern of being a grown-up that's kind of living a very repetitive, controlled lifestyle, and then just decides 2 years ago that he prognosticates there's going to be an election he's got a problem with, so he starts buying pipe bomb materials, never tests them, and then drives them in solo and wanders around DC and drops them in a very specific manner so as to avoid being seen on camera. We don't have any information about the guy's vehicle that you saw there, which is going to come into play later. That guy's vehicle shows up at a specific parking space that, you can't park in Washington, D.C. without paying for it. And apparently he paid for everything else with the credit card and used his own phone when he wandered around. So again, the problem always is going to be, you're trying to tell me that a mastermind criminal who will manage to avoid the FBI, let's give him the benefit of the doubt for the 6 weeks that after they'd already gathered everything and reevaluated it. I asked a couple of guys that do this kind of stuff all the time, that run down cell phone pings for drug dealers and bad guys and child pornographers, and you name your, take your pick of bad guys. It's like a 3-week case if you started from nothing. And if you already had all the material and all you had to do is go back and suss out, and we already know there were only like 186 cell phones that pinged in the area, 51 of whom were law enforcement that they just ignored. Well, then that shouldn't have taken very much time. And that doesn't take 6 weeks. That might take 6 days if everybody took their time. And they all, there's enough people to get it done.
Or 6 months, depending on when they started investigating this particular lead. Just refresh everybody's memory. The 51 cell numbers that they did not match with the ping, they did not do so because they were law enforcement and therefore did not need to be investigated.
Yeah, they were on the exclusion list, and we don't know that they ever went back and touched them again, but these are the questions that have been asked, and they have not been answered in a way that I think is satisfactory. So, that is what we would call basically that's a basic assumption, right? And so you start questioning your assumptions once you start working an investigation further, and maybe your underlying assumptions have to be re-questioned. So you assume that nobody in law enforcement was involved. Day one, exigent circumstances, go for the lowest hanging fruit. You run those down, and then you have to open up your bucket and start adding, all the things that you may have excluded. You should never throw them away. You just maybe don't look at them then. They've had 5 years on this thing. And also, just for nothing, not to be completely ridiculous, all we got to do is zoom back at the bigger question. How is it that all these penetrating minds, including people that have been celebrated as going into that agency, who all said that this was a bigger, broader conspiracy and would have to be than just one person? How does Brian Cole Jr. know where the security cameras are around Capitol Hill so as to pop up only on them during a very specific time and not at other times, and basically disappear from coverage for 8 minutes mid-route, disappear before, entering it? Like vehicle ingress and out and egress are both not captured on camera as far as we can tell. Again, if the FBI had the smoking gun where they're like, look, he parked here, he got out of this car at this time, he walked out wearing exactly what the hoodie does, the cell phone pings followed out the route, which they don't do that very well, and then he turned around, he got back into that car, and then he drove himself back home, and that's where he went, and the pings went with him, and so we know, and he got picked up on a license plate reader, down in Woodbridge, Virginia, getting off the, 95 down there. Then you go, okay, well, that sounds pretty convincing. It's really, really hard for you to say that we're going to just forget the last 4 years worth of information that's come out, including all the questions, which were very legitimate and asked by people who don't agree with me, like a Julie Kelly.
No, I question whether or not anyone was in touch with this kid, whether or not he was I can understand how he might be mentally deficient, but be susceptible of grooming. It's the type of grooming that you would expect, or the type of subject of the type of grooming you'd expect is get someone who's easily manipulated and use him, maybe not to deliver the pipe bombs, but maybe to build them, drive into the area, give them to whomever. But we don't know, and they haven't.
But then you're implicating an FBI cover-up as well, and then you're implicating other. Like at this point, so again, then somebody else placed it, whoever that person is, and that person had awareness of Capitol Police, camera systems.
Well, that's how we can merge these two theories to actually work with Steve Baker's theory.
I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work because the FBI didn't make that claim. They claimed he's the guy that walked around on the hood and then dropped those bombs. So basically, whatever they claimed is wrong. And anything that we claim that would even work this guy into it we're now trying to force something in that also starts off from the wrong assumption, which is that he's involved in the first place. That's where you'd have to prove it. And so, and they did it the backwards way too. And David, the route of proving this was done by finding every single person who bought a freaking type of pipe that was 8 inches with, co-threads on both sides, and every single person who bought a 1-inch pipe in America, and then they narrowed down their bucket from that. That is not how you do it. You find the people that were in the vicinity of the actual federal crime, and then you decide if any of those people match the profile who happened to do this thing. I'm not even sure it's not a general warrant, which is prohibited under the Fourth Amendment, to go out and find every single person who bought a specific pipe in America.
The reason why I say if he was involved, then that's how he would have to be involved. They used him, and they had him always on the back burner. If they ever got too close to whomever planted the pipe bombs, because this came at the time when someone allegedly suspected they found that person, they had this on the back burner. If he's involved, if he's not involved, I find that one even more difficult to accept, because then they are literally pinning this on an innocent, autistic, 25, now 30-year-old kid who's been sitting in a fucking jail since he's been arrested, hasn't gotten out yet. Mm-hmm. And they've just absolutely straight up got the wrong guy, which is...
He doesn't walk the way the person in the hoodie does. That's the other thing that's worth knowing. He's got no right leg drag or limp of any kind. He doesn't have an athletic gait. He has something of a shuffle, is the way that people have described it. And so the camera footage in some places are gone, and the difficulty in that particular neighborhood is that it's full of federal agents, to include U.S. Secret Service people who work the bomb squad, of all things. There are 2 bomb dogs that live in that neighborhood. So that's sort of hysterical. You've got FBI agents in there. You've got, police officers for state and local, and you have other federal agents from intelligence agencies and so on. Things can happen under your nose in your neighbor's house. That's obviously the case. But I got to tell you, there's some pretty alert people that are part of those organizations. And as a guy who lived in Virginia, not far away from where they live, I was up in Fairfax County. My next door neighbor started dealing drugs out of the house right next to me, right? And I noticed it right away. It was like, oh, what's up with this guy? Why does he do this thing? I want him to stop doing that thing. I think that delivering hand-to-hand transactions that mean you walk up, high-five some guy who's got head tattoos and is driving a Bentley is probably not the person, when the car is worth more than my townhouse in my parking space. I happen to notice it out my front window. So you have to be kind of not observant to be able to see. The claim is that he built this is the argument I've seen some Green Berets make, is that he built test bombs and must have built, because where were the other bombs?
Well, where's the other pipes? Where are the shoes, by the way?
Where are any of the things that are supposed to be and they did it 5 years later. It's all of it is illogical. Here, you know what the other crazy thing is for the chat to get out there and discuss? Anybody who's ever been in law enforcement knows that if you have a chance to seize a thing of value that is also potentially implicated in the crime, then you do it. You're going to seize a car. That's right. And you'd seize the car because theoretically it was the mechanism by which he went in there and delivered the devices. There's the possibility that there's residual black powder or whatever else is from in there. So you'd want to go and get a forensic run. The car is still sitting out in front of his mom's house as of right now, today. It's just sitting out there.
Okay.
So that doesn't happen in FBI cases. Let me give you just a contrary thing. I worked in an office up in northern Montana. It's called Shelby, Montana. There's about 2,000 people live in the town, and they work Indian reservation crimes out there. And I joined them for a temporary duty for 30 days. And while I was there, I went out into the gym, which was the garage, and there was this piece of shit truck that was hanging out there. And it had a shattered windshield and a bunch of junk and trash in the back of it and leaves. And it was wrecked. And it was like a 1986 something, a shitty Toyota jacked up, broken thing. I couldn't even tell necessarily what it was. I go, what the hell's that out there in the garage? And they go, oh, it's evidence. I go, okay. Evidence in what? And they're like, evidence in a homicide. It was a vehicular homicide. Somebody ran another person over in that truck, and then they drove around and then they hit a rock, and then the passenger died going through the windshield or something. And then the driver was caught, but a year or two later, committed suicide. So nobody owns the truck anymore. It's still it's just a thing. We don't have anyone. We can't return it to anybody. So it just hangs out there in the garage. It's been there for 8 years. That's the FBI we're talking about. My buddy told me for a fact that the FBI has a severed head hanging out in the freezers or in the refrigerators of the Miami field office, because he brought it back from the Dominican Republic on some dude who got killed and cut up, and it was an American, and they brought the head back. in a jar or like in a bucket, and then nobody knew what to do with it. And then they closed the case because all the guy's family members all died because there was a hurricane or something. And so they have this severed head just hanging out in an evidence fridge forever. This is the FBI we're talking about. They don't get rid of it. They're not taking the car.
Well, especially since it could have material. I mean, I presume they
it was on the license plate reader. So it's actually implicated in the complaint that they've given us so far. They're not taking the car.
The shoes. So first of all, so everybody appreciates the walking style of this kid is totally not like, by all people who seem to, have seen this, you can look at yourself who know him, doesn't walk like the person in the hoodie. His shoes are very large. Now, the question is also, my question, did he buy these shoes? Because if he's got those Nike shoes and there are only 25,000 made and he's got a size 11 probably represents like at most 5% of all sales of these shoes, unless the argument is he got them aftermarket. Does he have the shoes? Did he get the shoes? And they should be able to show that. That would be, good evidence.
That would be circumstantial evidence, but it would be interesting. Yes, it would be. Look, if you're going to build a circumstantial case, you better have a lot of circumstances that overlap to the point where you don't have anything else going on. At the end of the day, though, that's not what the burden of proof is in the American justice system.
It's beyond a reasonable doubt. And my question is,
if a reasonable person can doubt it, then you got problems. My question is
whether or not they're going to have these charges get dismissed because they're not even sufficient for probable cause. But they alleged everything. He bought the pipes. He bought this. Nothing about having bought the shoes, of which there were only 25,000 ever made. They cost a lot of money, and he's got a size that's not the most common in sales. Nothing. Not boo.
We've also heard apparently that there was a competency hearing that was recently, or not a competency hearing, but a competency evaluation being done very recently. So, and that was in the last couple of days. And so, what the result of that is unknown. He may not be fit to stand trial. Just kind of depends on whether or not they can decide whether he can hold the ideas in his mind that he was even competent to do this. But the broader problem for me is that I don't think he did it. And I'm not saying that out of a vacuum. I'm saying that I've seen exculpatory evidence that would lead me to think that they probably have the wrong guy. And I think a DC jury would agree with that. And it's not my evidence to share with you right now, but I think we can agree that if there's evidence that shows that he was somewhere else doing exactly the same thing that they claim he was doing in the place where the pipe bomber was, in other words, if he was doing something with his phone in a place that also makes sense, then you have a much, much harder time disproving that he was either driving, walking, filling another activity. And so how do you overcome that burden? What AUSA wants to bring this case? Which, by the way, they haven't gone to grand jury with it yet, which tells you something. That should tell people a lot. They didn't take this for an indictment. They took this to a magistrate judge where a case agent swore it out to a magistrate judge where a case agent swore it out to a judge in a written format, an affidavit, as opposed to going out and doing like the Q&A version of what the grand jury process looks like. And just a refresher for people that didn't hear previously, but grand jury is you, the agent, come in and present your case by being asked questions by a prosecutor who wants to bring the case. There's a pool of citizens in the grand jury that are secretive, and they get to listen in and they get to hear whatever evidence. They can ask you questions as follow-up. They present you present whatever the evidence is that the attorney wants them to see. So you ask questions about the case file. You can show certain exhibits and so on. You can read lab reports out to them and so on, and then you leave, and then they vote, decide whether or not there's enough to meet the burden of probable cause only, which is a very low standard. They didn't do that, and that's telling too, because that's how the FBI brings cases, particularly long-term cases. Like I don't know a case that's been 5 years in the works and they run and get a complaint.
You think they you're gonna go with it's straight up the wrong guy. He had nothing to do with anything. And then he only bought those materials if he did in fact buy them because they're regular household materials.
Or maybe he was building pipe bombs, but it doesn't mean anything. Like the problem with the pipe bomb story that they left the hole in, which we don't know the answer to, is where's the bomb part? Homemade black powder is not something that is everybody can make.
Well, that's why I'm going with if he did.
And those are things that are much more controlled. Like, look, if you wanted to go out and find all the people that bought the materials to build, like, it's saltpeter and it's charcoal and some sulfur.
Don't give the instructions. Potassium nitrate.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are places you do it, and then how did he know how to mix those things? I mean,
that's why if I believe that he actually bought the pipe bombs material and he was involved, I would say they used him as a patsy. He delivered the bombs, and then we have someone else planting them.
Why didn't they evacuate the neighbors? We just had a whistleblower complaint come out the other day saying nobody evacuated the neighbors. Nobody evacuated the neighbors, which is not what you do when you send in a bomb squad.
No, but they're going to say it's just that's FBI incompetence. That's not this administration being in on the setup.
It is horrifically overlapping incompetence and excuse. Like if you have to keep making excuses for the case is not good.
Yeah, no.
And that's the argument against it. It's like, wait, if I have this many questions about it, and look, we don't know all the evidence that they're going to present. But we know what they presented to a judge and what they argued, because that's what the judge signed off on. And I think the judge probably didn't understand how pings work. So that's problematic. We just have not a great option. And again, if everybody who looks at the guy goes, that's not how he walks, that's not what he looks like, and you don't have him without a mask getting in and out of his vehicle or proving that he was in the place at the time, and no one can say otherwise, that is not a slam dunk. And we haven't heard anyone believes that's the case.
Well, it's not even a slam dunk. It's just
bad.
Nobody believes it. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I have yet to meet it. Even Julie Kelly does not believe it.
Even FBI agents who are in the FBI that are around this thing, including people that are even on this task force, don't believe it. That's how bad this case is.